So why we're doing this? So in addition to the response from you, I think the response to your need for a regional convening, we also wanted the opportunity to figure out how we're going to build this movement that I keep talking about it. And I want you to start talking about it as well. But I think we need to, these are the opportunities to come up with a common language to talk about the things that we do together, the things that are really important for low-income families in this country.
How can we really start to move forward in terms of building a network and building a movement?
In order to have, these established networks, we need to have a whole lot of dialogue and exchange, and that we need to understand the past in order to plan for the future.
It's about, insofar as a network, being able to share information, resources, expertise. Training was offered, for example, as something that could be shared among a network. But the idea of creating other types of strategic partnerships and alliances around specific objectives, and those partnerships may not be necessarily among organizations with the same political views or the same type of work, but they're around a specific set of goals or a specific agenda.
Well, first of all, we have trained a whole number of parents and youth on how to work in collaboration, as well as to be leaders in their schools and in their communities, so that they're leaders in their own right and spokespeople in their own right.
Networking and coalition building is very important. And so in this last few months, we've seen millions and millions of immigrants that have come out demanding an end to the criminalization of their families, and also demanding immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform, to legalize all the undocumented workers that live and work in the United States.
I think one is around multi-languages. So all our meetings are in Korean, Spanish, and English. And I think around that, particularly dealing with each particular group's history and then the demands that come from that, as opposed to kind of putting people all together as people of color. Let's talk about what's happening in Korea, what's happening in the South with Katrina, and really kind of throw solidarity that way.
One of the strategies that we use for movement building is we begin with families where they are in relationship to children, to their children. We believe that what's the dearest to them and is our motivation, is their motivation, is for their children to succeed. And we believe that getting engaged takes a while. If your voice has been silenced, you don't just jump right in.
Well, a lot of people think that they can do things on their own. There are a lot of individuals, there's a lot of organizations that they just see the world through their own lens, and they don't reach out to broaden and to network with people in a similar circumstance. So what we're trying to do is overcome that barrier, and sometimes that barrier takes the form of racial divisions, sometimes it's geographic divisions, sometimes it's just that organizations feel that they could do it themselves. But the reality is, to change around the prospects of our children, we have to be able to work in coalition together. We have to be able to bridge those barriers and reach for a higher goal.
I think one of them is that we don't have a lot of conversations about broader strategy, and so therefore we could be talking about the same issues with housing, policing, and whatnot, but because we're not talking about our broader view around it, it ends up being that we don't have agreement, or as we're working together toward the end, there's this agreement that we don't know in the beginning. So I think a lot of those strategic, bigger conversations are some things that we need to have.
One of the challenges is power. We're talking about people who are often not willing to relinquish power, and they want to have power over somebody else rather than power with somebody else.
Well, some of the challenges are primarily with a lot of the families that we work with have the challenge of 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and to maintain the momentum and to maintain people involved for the medium and long term. That's always a big challenge. But I think it's just part of figuring out how we organize and build leadership in the community. Well, public policy issues is education. It's really an important issue for our community. They prioritize that. Also, we are working on immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform, and those are some of the two. We also are working on the issues that affect the voting rights. Those are really important.
Transportation with the bus riders union, trying to get our consent decree, civil rights consent decree extended. Like I said before, cutting the autos in Los Angeles, as well as the increasing cafe standards in terms of emissions, and then trying to stop the kind of pre-prisoning of our youth in terms of truancy tickets, putting them on gang databases, etc. on the high school level.
And our mission is simple. Our mission is to strengthen the voices of low-income families. Behind that, though, is our intent to create a better society, an equal and just society for all. And we want to think about doing that. I'm connecting the mission and the vision of the foundation. We want to talk about how the voices, by raising the voices of low-income families, by engaging them in the process of change, we can begin to see make some difference.
Movement building is about being sustainable over the long term and growing. Movement building is about developing leadership from amongst our own community members so they speak for themselves, so that they're leaders because they know the community and they can see the solutions that will solve the problems in their communities.
I think in particular, I think the foundation is really important to keep the anti-racist lens on it, and not kind of go into the multiculturalism and whatnot, because I think the anti-racism is the strongest, less watered down, and I think that this is one of the only foundations that specifically funds that. I think beyond that is trying to have what are the strategic conversations that we all need to have to at least know where we are, hopefully get unity, but if not, just if we know where we are, then that's how we can figure out how we can work together to actually better.
We believe that the current movement of low-income parents to change education is really at the forefront of what needs to happen in Los Angeles.
One of the interesting things about this gathering is that there are organizations that work on different issues, healthcare and housing and immigration and welfare, parents, mothers that have been on welfare, and the criminal justice system, youth, and different issues. And so bringing together all the different organizations, low-income families, and talk about the different issues and how they can better network, I think it would be very, very exciting and it's great. So my recommendation is to bring together the families that are impacted by the different issues so that they learn how to network and really have the vision that we are creating a movement and that we can, working together, we can make a difference.